Try and find yourself a horror fan who doesn't love immersing themselves in a franchise, a saga even. For while very few horror franchises can maintain consistency across, say, 7 or 8 entries, it's still great fun to spend a few days losing yourself in the twisted mythology of a horror IP. While there are many, of course, classic long-runner horror franchises most of us have seen, the Halloweens, Elm Streets, Friday the 13th, Screams and so on, there are others that have passed a lot of us by. I'm Sean Ferrick for What Culture Horror, and here are 10 horror movie franchises you've probably never seen. Number 10. The Blackwell Ghost. It's telling that despite being an 8-part found footage franchise that's been averaging 1 movie per year since 2017, The Blackwell Ghost still doesn't have its own Wikipedia page. Now, granted, the first film may not be immediately inviting to many. Its corny key art, extremely low budget, and mere 59-minute runtime doesn't exactly suggest a classic in the making, nor the firm foundations of an ongoing series. But the original film, about a filmmaker, played by the real-life director Turner Clay, being terrorised by ghosts while trying to capture their existence, is a surprisingly effective romp, elevated by its moody minimalism, eerie lo-fi style, bloat-free pacing, and surprisingly believable performances. The film evidently did well enough for Clay to forge ahead, producing a glut of sequels, which, while varying somewhat in quality, largely cling to a similar formula. And yet, even many die-hard horror fans still have no earthly idea that this micro-budget IP exists at all. In the very least, all 8 films are short enough that you could conceivably binge the whole lot in a single day. Number 9. Warlock. 1989's Warlock stars the late, great Julian Sands as the title character, the son of Satan who is transported to 20th century California on a mission to destroy the world. Though the original flopped at the box office, it became something of a cult classic on home video, in large part due to Sands' deliciously charming central performance, not to ignore Richard E. Grant's spirited turn as the preposterously monikered witch hunter hero Giles Redfern. Sequel Warlock the Armageddon was produced for a noticeably lower budget in 1993, but Sands swung even harder for the fences with his performance here, and some of the death scenes were impressively creative, particularly the one where Warlock turns a dude into a Picasso-esque sculpture. Sadly, the franchise fell off a cliff with its third and final entry, Warlock 3: The End of Innocence, which, beyond plunging the budget even lower and lacking the basic charm of its predecessors, also regrettably subbed out Sands for Bruce Payne. And yet, those first 2 movies are entertaining enough that Warlock's small but loyal fan base continues to sing their praises. Number 8. Feast. How many horror films about people holed up in a Nevada bar while being attacked by a gross-ass monster have you seen that were executive produced by the likes of Ben Affleck, Matt Damon and Wes Craven? Feast was the outcome of an HBO documentary TV series called Project Greenlight, effectively a contest where one submitted screenplay was chosen to be made into a feature film. Screenwriters Marcus Dunstan and Patrick Melton, who would later pen numerous Saw sequels, won the 3rd season contest with Feast, which was released in 2005. Though it received mixed reviews and failed to turn a profit at the box office, its humour, clever twists and memorable kills made it a modest hit on home video. Enough even that Feast 2: Sloppy Seconds followed in 2008 and Feast 3: The Happy Finish the very next year. While neither got close to matching the gonzo thrills of the original, that a film greenlit from a reality documentary series ended up spawning 2 sequels honestly feels like a bit of a win for all involved. Number 7. Laid to Rest. At first glance, Laid to Rest looked like just another low-budget slasher film sent out to die, but it managed to sustain interest due to word-of-mouth buzz around its savage central antagonist, Chrome Skull. Beyond wearing a Chrome Skull mask and rocking 2 huge hunting knives, Chrome Skull also records his kills with a shoulder-mounted camera, and because the film was directed by veteran makeup artist Robert Hall, the gore effects are absolutely wild. It proved enough of a success that Hall was quickly able to produce a sequel, Chrome Skull Laid to Rest 2, in 2011, which amped up the practical effects-driven ultra-violence even more. Not entirely unlike the Terrifier movies, the storytelling and overall lore is a lot less impressive and coherent than the effects and central villain, which nevertheless made Laid to Rest a cult franchise in its own right. Hall planned to complete the trilogy with a 3rd film, Laid to Rest Exhumed, but the Kickstarter failed to raise sufficient funds, and then Hall tragically passed away suddenly in 2021, seemingly closing the door on the IP for good. Number 6. Subspecies. It's incredibly rare for the same director to helm every single entry in any long-running horror franchise, and so there's something innately charming about the fact that the direct-to-video vampire franchise Subspecies has retained the same filmmaker, Ted Nicolau, across all 5 movies spanning a stonking 32 years. Now, it's easy to knock these films for their low budgets and cheesy, nonsensical storylines, but it's also easy to fall in love with the sheer atmosphere and vibes-rich nature of Nicolau's filmmaking. A big plus here is that he shot all 5 films on location in Romania, lending them a unique flavour far from the generic Los Angeles soundstage look you might otherwise expect. Nicolau's deference towards stop-motion effects also helps, as does a genuinely terrific performance from Anders Hove as central vampire Radu, with Hove appearing in all 5 films. It's not for everyone, but Subspecies is a far more effort-filled enterprise than you might expect from a cursory glance. Number 5. The Amityville Horror. Any card-carrying horror fan has almost certainly heard of the Amityville Horror franchise, whether by way of the original 1979 film or the 2005 Ryan Reynolds starring remake. But what you might not have known is that, as of 2025, there are more than 60 movies in the Amityville canon. While there are only 7 authorized sequels to the 79 original, because Amityville is a real town and the crime that inspired the original story is a matter of historical record, nothing has stopped independent producers from creating their own Amityville movies. These films are perhaps somewhat unsurprisingly produced on a low budget in order to cynically cash in on the well-known Amityville name, with a premise designed less for logic than to grab attention. Some choice examples include Amityville Vampire, Amityville in Space, and even Amityville Vibrator. For all but the most committed of masochists, this dubiously connected horror franchise is the easiest pass ever. We just don't have enough time on this earth to spend it this way. Number 4. It's Alive. Now, there's a decent chance you might have seen Larry Cohen's inimitable 1974 horror film It's Alive, an unforgettably bizarre B-movie in which a father hunts down his own murderous mutant child. But it's decidedly less likely you've bothered with the rest of the series, even though Cohen was actively involved in every other mainline entry, and honestly, they're pretty good. First up, there's It Lives Again, which more or less retreads the same ground, albeit in a more chaotic, less thematically interesting way. But thanks to Cohen, it's still a fun time. And then we have It's Alive 3, Island of the Alive, the insane finale in which the courts banish the remaining mutant babies to a remote desert island, where all hell inevitably breaks loose once again. There's also a 2009 remake, though it lacks most of the charm of the OG trilogy, with Cohen himself even calling it terrible in a press interview. The original 3 movies, though, are well worth a punt for the sheer what the f*** factor alone. Number 3. The Howling. Similarly to It's Alive, you may well have seen Joe Dante's original 1981 werewolf film, The Howling. But did you know that it was only the first in a series of 8 movies spanning 3 full decades? To call the series schizophrenic is rather underselling it. There's no cohesion at all between movies, most of which make no reference to the original and are instead quite keen to just do their own thing, almost as if each new film is a spec script that was retrofitted into a Howling sequel. Some especially eccentric examples include Howling 4, the original Nightmare, which just decided to more faithfully readapt Gary Brandner's source novel, and Howling 5, The Rebirth, which is basically a lycanthropic riff on Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None. The most recent entry was 2011's reboot, The Howling Reborn, which evidently performed poorly enough to finally put the series to bed. However, in 2020, it was announced that It director Andy Muschietti is soon to direct a remake of the original movie for Netflix. The Howling is quite the shaggy dock of a franchise, but there are at least a few flawed gems among the lot worth checking out. Number 2. The Prophecy. The Prophecy is a 1995 fantasy horror starring Christopher freaking Walken as the Archangel Gabriel, who plots to start a war between heaven and hell. Walken is clearly having an absolute whale of a time throughout, and better yet, the entire cast is absolutely stacked, including the likes of Elias Koteas, Virginia Madsen, Eric Stoltz, Amanda Plummer, and even Viggo Mortensen as Lucifer himself. Though wildly uneven, those rough edges nevertheless allowed it to strike a chord with audiences, enough that 2 direct Walken starring sequels were produced in 1998 and 2000. But the wheels well and truly came off once Walken, who by his own admission almost never turns down roles, couldn't be coaxed back for the 4th and 5th films, which were shot back-to-back and released mere months apart in 2005. Considering that only the original 95 film got a theatrical release, though, you couldn't be blamed for being wholly unaware that 4 other Prophecy movies even exist. Number 1. Evil Bong. God bless Charles Band, the legendary founder of schlock factory Full Moon Pictures, responsible for franchises such as Puppet Master, Trancers, the aforementioned Subspecies, and even more recently, Evil Bong. The original 2006 film revolves around a group of stoners who acquire a large possessed bong, which drags its users into the Bong World, a nightmarish strip club where they're tortured and killed. It's sublimely stupid stuff, but aptly the sort of hilarious brainless concept someone would indeed come up with while ripping bong hits. Somehow, Evil Bong wasn't a mere one-off for Full Moon, but has endured an inexplicable 10-film franchise, including a 3D entry and a Versus crossover with another of the studio's dubious IP, The Ginger Dead Man. Only the most devoted Full Moon fans would dare put themselves through the entire series, with curious parties probably watching one or maybe two Evil Bong movies at most before bailing out.